What's up, everybody? We're back again, a day late and a buck short like usual, right? Just had a couple little scheduling issues, but we got it all worked out. And so today's episode is with Brett Gough. Brett is down there in Texas, and he was doing some good work helping people out during Snowpocalypse. So we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about that. My favorite topic lately, secession, of course. We had an interesting conversation on secession and what that looks like in Texas versus other places that want to split their states, like up here in Washington State. So we're going to go over that stuff. Before we jump into the show, the usual, I got to thank my Beyond the Ballot super supporters, Maxwell, Dave, Dennis, and Chuck. Also, Dave, Dennis, and Chuck help produce the show along with myself all through Patreon, patreon.com/beyondtheballot. And you get some cool rewards for joining that, a little extra content, things like that. But thank you guys for doing that. I couldn't do the show without you. Now let's jump in, talk to Brett Gough about Snowpocalypse, some awesome stuff about rural living, survival, that kind of stuff. Secession, enjoy. Shout out to Voluntary Apothecary. Voluntary Apothecary is here to fulfill all of your beard care needs. They carry beard oil, mustache wax, beard butter, and more. I only use their beard care products, and I love them. You can check out their amazing products at voluntарyapothecary.com, and listeners of the show can take 10% off your order with code BEYOND at checkout.
Professional anarchists.
You guys are getting paid?
Boom, we're back again for another episode of Beyond the Ballot. And today I'm joined by Brett Gough. He's here to tell us all about Snowpocalypse and how the community pulled together down there in Texas. I'm sure they did in other places too, but let's start at the beginning, man. First, before we get to Snowpocalypse, say hi to everybody, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, everybody. My name's Brett. I live in Fort Worth. I'm a contractor and anarchist.
Hell yeah. Perfect. So, Snowpocalypse hit Texas, and I'm still, I'm up in Washington, so I'm used to this cold and shit, man. I know everybody down there is not necessarily used to it or prepared, but, some sort of Arctic whatnot, I don't even know what the fuck it's called, came down through the U.S. and just blasted you guys, huh?
Yeah, so it was pretty unexpected for most of us. Give me one sec.
Sure.
Get out of this thing. Yeah, it was unexpected for everybody, right? So we're in southern United States. Our temperatures are typically warm. We don't really get winters. We do get some snowfall from time to time. Usually if it's winter precipitation, it's a layer of ice that comes overnight and is gone within 24 or 48 hours. We don't get a lot of sub-zero temperatures though. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of what really fucked everybody up down here. So I don't know if I can say fuck on here.
Yeah. How long did that last?
So it started getting really cold, at freezing temperatures on Thursday before Valentine's Day. And it was, in the 30s and 40s for several days. But on Valentine's Day, it blew in and the low got down to 2 degrees with a wind chill of -15.
Right. Jeez. Yeah.
Super, super duper cold. And then it dropped about 6 to 8 inches of snow all across the state of Texas.
Yeah. 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 Now, was Texas probably hit the hardest? Because I know other people in, I think a mutual friend of ours, John Locke over there in Louisiana, lost some animals and whatnot with the sub-zero temperatures. But it seemed like from everything I was seeing that Texas got the brunt of it.
Texas did seem to get the majority of the cold temperatures.
Mm.
But now, as we got our snow, following our snow that came in, there was a second round, and that seemed to hit the majority of the southern states from Texas to the East Coast.
Mm.
And they did get it pretty bad. I think where Texas was completely unprepared was in how we handled the electric grid, and the fact that our pipes here, how deep do you guys bury your water pipes up there? Probably like 8 feet.
Depends on where you're at. Anywhere 2 to 10 feet. The frost line doesn't go too deep where I'm at near Spokane, but up north they go deeper.
Yeah, like here, 2 feet, and they call it good because
Mm-hmm.
they just don't expect it at all.
Sure.
Another thing that really messed Texans up is the fact that once we started switching over, we don't have basements in Texas. That isn't a thing.
Right.
We switched over from using mainly pier and beam foundation and running pipes underneath the house. And people, when we started pouring concrete slabs, they realized it was wiser to run your plumbing through your attic space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when all that shit froze, all it did was bust your pipes. And then when that water came out, it ruined everything in people's homes.
Jeez.
And so we had people without power, and then they were also being displaced from their home completely because it was filling up with water and ice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about too, is the preparedness here, because after all the shit slinging from Northerners to Texans and the back and forth and whatnot, and when people kind of calmed down about who should be ready for what cold and all that, it seemed like there was a good meeting in the middle ground about the takeaway being be prepared based on the likelihood of whether or not something's going to happen. So it's interesting that there's really no preparing for that if that's the way that everyone has decided to build for years and years. Like, why are you going to insulate the hell out of your pipes living in Texas? So yeah, you can't do much about that. Now, what happened with the natural gas lines? Because I am born and raised in Arizona originally and moved up here to Washington. And we had one day in particular, I remember, when I was in mining, when we shut down, it was like somewhere around -14 wind chill, and they were saying the natural gas lines in Arizona were freezing up, and there were busted pipes and all that too, of course, because that doesn't happen much. But I'm hearing about the gas lines and the electric grid.
Yeah, so here, a good buddy of mine, he's like a head operator at a natural gas plant, right? And the way he explained it to me was our energy comes from our natural gas plants. And that natural gas being pushed to our energy companies, right? But in order to move and create power to move all of that natural gas, the gas company actually uses water. And then they're boiling water to create the power to continuously push that gas through those lines, right? And so what was happening is the inlet for the water that pushes the gas was freezing. So therefore, they had no power source at the gas company to push it to the electric company and get it out to the people.
Right. Makes sense. Now, the electric grid.
Huge disaster.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Texas is separate from the federal grid, from any other grid. You guys are on your own as far as electricity, right? That's one that people have been talking about quite a bit.
And I can't tell you a whole lot. I mean, I'm not very enlightened on the subject myself, but I know it goes back to power struggles in the 80s coming out of Houston, where all of the oil refineries and everything are.
Sure.
I really tell you, it's one of those weird things to where, would it be great for us to be completely independent? Yeah. But at the same time, when you're looking at bureaucrats to keep everything in line and operational,
right,
government interference for you.
Yep. And so the other thing
there's something.
Sorry, go ahead.
Lines of I think there was 6 or 7 plants that weren't up to par and weren't even operational at the time of that happening.
Well, that doesn't help. What the hell?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no joke.
what's with the bills? Like, I've seen pictures of just insane gas and electric bills coming out after all of this. What's with the gouging on that?
So there are a handful of companies in the state that allow you to do a fluctuating bill, right? So your rate's going to fluctuate, which I don't understand why anyone would buy into something like that, especially if they know anything about like the whole subprime mortgage or any type of payment that can fluctuate on. But yeah, so they have these fluctuating bill plans to where your bill's based on the amount of power being pulled by, I guess, like a cooperative, you know, and the higher the surge of power, the higher your kilowatt hours are going to be.
That's wild.
And so it got to where some people were being billed like $500 per kilowatt hour during these blackouts.
Jeez. Yeah. What's that article that everyone's been sharing? It's like Jerry Jones, right? That has, I don't remember if he had a gas or an electric company, but says Jerry Jones hits payday with after the Snowpocalypse or something like that. It's like, what a scumbag, man. Of all the people, he could help people out.
Yeah, but I mean, hell, that's a typical Jerry Jones for you.
Yeah. Well, now that we got through the nitty gritty and kind of figured out what mostly was going on for that and causing problems, you were showing that you were chopping firewood and getting it to people among a lot of other people who pulled together and did a lot of great things for the communities down there. And it's great to see that, because that's what anarchists need to do. Get together and help people, whether they're anarchists or not. And that was probably my favorite thing to come out of that, besides, just the general discussion about preparedness. So what were you doing to help people out during this, and who else do you know that was doing stuff?
Man, there were tons of amazing people out there, braving the cold and putting in tons of hours out, helping others. I'm from a small Texas town, come from, a ranching background. So I'm already naturally more prepared than most, I guess, and knowledgeable about what to do when a situation like that arises. And my whole thing was, all right, like, it's colder than it's ever been here in my lifetime, 34, 35 years. And the rolling blackouts were only supposed to last like 45 minutes, right? 12 hours later, nobody's got power. And I knew at that point, without power and the cold, Texans weren't prepared for the cold. But a lot of us do have fireplaces. I don't have a fireplace. A lot of folks do, though. And so the way it kind of started with me was like, all right, I'm with my buddies, making sure my kid's okay, their kids are okay. These guys all happen to have fireplaces. Let's go and make sure that they have enough firewood to keep their families warm. And if I go and help all these people with this, then I'm going to have this many open doors available to me should I lose power. I've got somewhere to go with firewood, right? And so me and my buddy Kevin go out and we start cutting wood, and then it's Travis and Doug, they come out. Buddy Mike came out, he brought a buddy of his, and we all made sure that they had their trucks full of wood. Well, in return, they decided to stay and help. So at that point, they're like, hey, what are we going to do? Go to work today? No, like, it's the Snowpocalypse. So the next thing you know, we've got a group of like 10 people that are out just cutting wood, loading it up in people's cars and their trunks and the back of their trucks. We're making as many deliveries as we could with, the road conditions being what they were. Yeah, it was pretty incredible. And then I don't know if everybody had the same idea or not, but some people started messaging me and they were like, hey, we want to help. But I knew that they were in other areas that were more convenient for other people that I couldn't get to. And so then we kind of started coordinating to where, hey, you're in this area. This person just messaged me. They're up there. Is it okay if I send them to you to come get some wood? And so then, it was organized chaos. I was doing my best to try to stay on top of everything and reply to messages as I could. But man, it was so cold that at some points my phone could last at 80% for 5 minutes and it would freeze and shut off. And I had to stick it back in the truck and set it by the vent, get it hot again, and put it back on the charger. It was wild.
Yeah, that does suck when that
happens.
I
mean, all over the state, you were thinking things like. But yeah, I mean, the way that everybody pulled together, it's typical Texas fashion. I mean, you see it all the time. It's kind of like the what are those guys called? Like the Cajun Navy responding to Katrina and shit. I mean.
That's good, man.
When in doubt and government in, just wait for the rednecks.
Yeah. Fucking A right. Yeah. No, and so that's something I wanted to ask about too. With, I don't know, near the end of the Trump presidency and going into now, there's been a whole lot of talk of secession. And Texas has been talking about that for years and years and years, right? At least playing around with the idea of wanting to be that. How much more has that idea been pushed forward after Snowpocalypse? Like, did that light a fire under anybody saying we can do this if we can pull together through this?
Yeah, but that's a settlement that is here every day lately, pretty much since November. They've kind of been like, well, we're not going to do this. We're going to pull away. But I know that anytime something like this happens, Texans do kind of poke their chest out and say, see, we don't need anybody. We can do this on our own.
Sure.
Which I don't know if I wouldn't mind. I don't know. People say that Texas is free and they want to be here, but I mean, it's not. Like, we've got one of the worst police states in the country.
I've heard that as well. I think secession would probably be a good step, even if it is, legal secession and whatnot. Everybody's talking about it. It's not what we as anarchists would want, obviously, but it's a step, I think, in the right direction, maybe an opportunity. And I'm talking about any state, for you to maybe get a little foothold towards the freedom that you do want to be independent, away from a federal government. Texas probably leads the charge on that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Californians seem to be pretty ready to jump ship and go start their commune land.
Well, I just hope that if that happens with California, they can separate into California and the state of Jefferson, because there's some good old boys, some rednecks up north that would love to be separate from Southern California. Got some family up there that would love that very much. But yeah, they're talking about that. Now, is Texas wants to secede as an entire state, right? Because it seems like a whole lot of other states are looking at breaking off, like California, and splitting into two. Here in Washington, they want to make Washington and the state of liberty. Parts of Oregon are trying to secede to greater Idaho right now, but Texas wants to remain the Republic of Texas, right?
Yeah. So I guess that comes from our history of being the Republic, prior to joining the Union for the second time. And it is a feeling, that's shared by the entire state for the most part. With Texas being such a large state, you can go to all four corners and you're still going to pick up that sentiment. Sure. And a Texan can get along almost everywhere in Texas. But I tell you, when we want to secede as a state as a whole, what they also want to do is build their amazing walls around the cities of Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, because they're like, yeah, dude, like, take Texas, it does do its own thing, but we don't care for these cities that are turning totally blue.
Right. No, what do you think's causing that shift? Is it influx of Californians, people from other places? Because I'm definitely seeing that up here. Or is the culture in the cities that you've noticed just kind of turning by itself?
There's a lot of both, I think. I mean, so in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, in DFW, we are growing on an average of like 1,000 people per day.
Damn.
I mean, like we can't build houses fast enough for people to move here. It's just insane right now. So there is a ton of people coming here. I mean, we have a lot. We've got a great economy. And over the last few years, when we started having dips, we did not feel it very much here at all. And so, yeah, you've got the growth. You've got everyone immigrating and coming here. But at the same time, you've got a younger generation, a more, urban-based generation outside of more rural thinking, So I think that new generation coming up, and I also think that young people being involved in politics has a lot to do with it.
Okay. Interesting. What part of that?
I think that, I don't know. It seems like growing up, I remember politics being something that was hardly even discussed by my parents, my uncles, or any other adults, really, other than the elderly. It was always the seniors who were way more involved in those types of things. And so I think that, by design, they've worked to get younger people involved in politics a lot more. And I think that's making a really fast change for them.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. We are seeing younger and younger people getting into all these different offices, and even not even necessarily just joining in the political process that way, but tons and tons of younger activists that, I don't know, they seem to choose an extreme more easily, I would say, as far as left and right, rather than stepping back and thinking about what they want to be activists for, which is, it sucks. I wouldn't even say, well, at least they're getting involved, because they're getting involved in statism of one form or another. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you were looking at the distinction of the rural communities and the cities. Like you said, in Texas, they'd want to build the walls around there. And I've been railing on this on the show for a while, and I always mention Robert Evans and his podcast, It Could Happen Here. I think that's the biggest split that we're looking at, is the rural thinking and urban thinking, as far as, how to run societies, whether or not to leave people alone. And like I've said before, you see it with the splits in France that caused the whole yellow vest movement and whatnot, the taxes on diesel fuel over there. So the way that the secessions seem to be working out, the way people want them to work out up in my neck of the woods, inland and Pacific Northwest, is separating those rural areas from the cities. Now, I think you were joking when you said you want to build, or the people there in the rural areas want to build the walls around these cities, but seceding as a republic, that's going to be tough to deal with if that happens, because everyone's still going to be there. You're not seceding away from the urban areas.
Right. Yeah. And so then what do you do at that point? How do you tackle that?
Right. Because they're still going to want to govern.
No, of course, Texas is so large. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Texas is so large that you could most definitely split it down into a handful of separate countries. But then at that point, if you're looking at the completely rural places who have got no economy at all, and then you've got these economic boom points that they're going to have to work hand in hand.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not a fucking economist,
so
I couldn't go in depth on that. But it'd be an interesting thing to watch and see.
And I think that's like where you and I see eye to eye in like the fact that we have a hard time envisioning what a metropolis looks like in a completely unregulated world, because we know to be self-sufficient, and the people that we associate with know to do that. We understand what that life is like and how easily attainable that could be. But how do you make the huge machines that are metropolises operate?
No, and it's a good question, because it really is something I'm not familiar with. And I think it was maybe the first or second episode when I shifted the name of the podcast from the Dank Podstash to Beyond the Ballot. I was looking into that a little bit, if anybody wants to go back and listen. And there's some good ideas that people have for how the cities can work more sustainably and more self-sufficiently and not have to rely on rural areas for all the food and whatnot. I mean, most, if not all, big cities are food deserts, and all that food shipped in. I can't remember if it was like 70% of the food in the United States is grown, in the northwestern region of the continent, or I guess of the United States, and shipped everywhere else. And that, that's not going to work if we're trying to decentralize. People need to figure out how to make it happen. And there are good ideas out there. But that's the key, really, is decentralization, maybe secession along the way. But it seems like people are just happier to let their fucking governments out of the cities do whatever they want. And I don't know. It's not something I would compare to slavery. I know that gets thrown around in the anarchist community a lot. I don't think it's quite the same, but it's not good how they handle, taxation, subsidies, all that stuff from cities out to rural areas.
Yeah, I would like to see a project done, a study done where you could take a huge piece of land and let it just form naturally, let the society form naturally without the input of bureaucracy and government and regulation. Mm-hmm. And I think that we would get to the point to where cities are going to happen naturally. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's been part of mankind since shortly after we started throwing rocks at animals. So, sure. I mean, I think it would happen. I just can't tell you how to get there.
Yeah. Well,
I really don't want any part of it.
I can't blame you. I'm right with you there. It's an interesting thing, though, because that's one thing I love looking back at is, ancient times and how people's lived and whatnot. And you had cities forming, riverbanks, delta areas, places where there's good food, easy to ship stuff, all that. And then you look at places like fucking Phoenix, Arizona, and it's just dead. Not pretty. Hot as hell. Where's the water? And it's like, why are these cities even starting up here? Like, there's no mining there either. I could understand a place like Bisbee or something like that, but it's like, this is not sustainable.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to point out like Los Angeles whenever that type of issue comes up, and the fact that Los Angeles should not exist at all and will like inevitably fail due to water alone. They don't figure out how to what's the word I'm looking for? Remove the salt from the ocean.
Desalinize.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, like, yeah, let's just travel 300 miles away to where we know this water source is and build this giant concrete river to ship all this water down here. It's just fucking crazy.
Yep. Yeah. And, if the people up north in Northern California decide that they're tired of that, I think there's only, it's either 2 or something less than 5 pump stations that pump all the water from Northern California down to the Southern California. So just saying, that's some pretty easy choke points, fellas, right. If you're ever sick of them bossing you around. But no, it's the same thing for Arizona with the Colorado River Project, Salt River Project, all that. They're sucking these rivers dry. And that's one of the main reasons I left Arizona and came up here to the inland Northwest. And it's fucking a paradise up here. I love it. There's water everywhere, trees, all that. And I don't know. They say they've planned it out. The city planners have planned it out for the next 50 years that they'll be good with the water in Arizona, but I don't trust it, especially with the population growth like you're seeing in Dallas-Fort Worth area. Phoenix is just insane and full of Californians in a mass exile.
Yeah, it is. So what is it you believe that's taking them to Phoenix? Because I know the real estate market in Phoenix is just on fire and has been for several years now.
Yeah. I it's weird because I lived there. I lived in Phoenix, I think, until I was like 10. And then the family up and moved to Tucson. But I have been back and forth since then. And it's just, I don't know, because it didn't have all the cool shit that it has now when I was growing up. It was just, hot and a bunch of asphalt. But it's really, you could go do anything there now. And I think that came with, obviously, a lot of people moving in and wanting more stuff. I couldn't tell you what's driving them there other than it was cheap housing at one point, and now it's a huge city where anything's possible.
It's wild.
It is.
That's so wild.
It's just the armpit of America is fucking desert. I hate it. But it has its beauty with the mountains and whatnot, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. So that I kind of want to circle back to Snowpocalypse a little bit and the argument from a lot of people about preparedness and whatnot. I don't think it's productive to be hopping on Facebook and whatnot and making fun of people in a hard time and saying, why weren't you prepared? Or we drive in that all the time. But what are people talking about now about preparedness? Is this a one and done thing, or are people saying, this could happen again? It did happen. So maybe we'll have, an extra backpack full of stuff for cold weather or something in a back closet or something like that.
Yeah. So, and we'll tie that back to how you kind of brought up the Biden administration coming into power and Texans wanting to succeed. So a lot of people that I know, they have been preparing for something to come on ever since November. There's a lot of preppers in Texas, so we've been at it for years. But a lot of people are like, yeah, since the administration's changed and we don't really know what's going on. A lot of people already had 5-10 cases of water in the garage. Deep freeze, full of food, ready to rock and roll. Which the great thing was when the electricity went out, we just threw all of our frozen goods in the cooler and then filled it with snow and then set it outside. So it was good to go. We didn't lose food that far. But yeah, so a lot of people were prepared in that way. The main thing I think that people took from it was the electricity loss and how important that is. So a lot of people now own generators. Right. A lot of people got online and ordered generators that are going to be on back order for a while now because there's so many people buying them up. And I think that's going to be something that a lot of people look for. As far as moving forward, that's what they're going to be mainly concerned about, is that loss of power. Right.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And like I said, up here in the north, we get hit with that, with the winds blowing in, the next storm and whatnot. Heavy wet snow taking out the lines. Especially me, I'm the second to last house on the line up here in the valley I'm at, so I'm one of the last ones to get power on. And sometimes it gets fucking cold, and having a little generator to run a space heater or something is really nice. I saw a lot of people sharing good tips as well. Space blankets, setting up a tent in your living room, put blankets up over doorways and whatnot to keep the heat in where you're at, that kind of stuff. So, despite seeing
that's the third thing I think that people are going to take from it. We've gotten so comfortable in our day-to-day lifestyle that we forget all of these old hints that our grandparents and great-grandparents had to use on a daily basis to get by. And growing up way out in the country, we had just a potbelly stove, and that was our source of heat for the house, right? And whenever it did get down to freezing temperatures, well, it was put the blankets over the doorways and heat only the living room,
right?
And if it got cold enough, everyone just had a slumber party in the living room. And so I was trying to remind people of those simple things as they're like picking up wood, like, hey, cover all of your windows with, foil or heavy quilts, whatever you can get to stop drafts and things from coming in and out, and heat only that one room and have everybody hang out in that one room.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think a lot of people will be smarter because, it'll happen again. It surely will. It was just a few years ago that we had ice storms roll through really bad, and we had similar issues with the electricity. Plumbing wasn't nearly big of an issue because it didn't get so cold.
Right.
especially for like a span of a week. But our trees aren't made to take precipitation in heavy waves. So if it's ice that rolls through and it sticks to the trees, those trees are down in a heartbeat, and that takes out all of our power lines.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a regular occurrence up here.
Hopefully
that
people will
sucks.
be a little smarter.
Sorry, go
But
ahead.
yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cool ideas that I saw, like with a tent, put the tent in the living room. I saw that idea. That's something I didn't think of. That's a pretty awesome idea.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. And, I figured Texas was full of preppers with your water and whatnot. And, a freak storm like that, freak cold. I know you said you had rolling ice storms and whatnot, but just the way that worked out, it's understandable that people aren't prepared for that. And also, like you said, circle back to is just the way that people live now. People don't have it in their head to be prepared. Everything's instant gratification, automatic. You turn on the water, it's always there. Turn on the light, it's always there. You can go to the store and get whatever food you need at any time. I don't know. We rail on that in the anarchist community all the time, but it seems like most people don't listen, except for other anarchists, of course.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think just a couple of generations ago, your granddad likely built the house that your parents were raised in. And if something went wrong, he knew exactly how to go and fix it. People just lacking knowledge. And so now if something goes wrong, the typical guy who works a 9 to 5, maybe sits behind a computer or in a sales job somewhere, he has no idea how to do these things.
Right.
So now everybody's call the guy, right? Like, oh, well, the TV quit working, call the guy. The plumbing's broke, call the guy. And so but no one knew what to do other than like call the guy. And so after that, phones were just nonstop. And it was, after we finished the wood and got the majority of that done and made sure that I had helped as many people as we could, it turned over to, hey, my pipes are broken. We're without water. This is happening. And so then it was, all right, grab my plumbing box. And then we're just all around town, mainly capping off frozen lines that had cracked and just getting those capped so that they could turn on some source of water for the next couple of days until myself or somebody else could get back out there, repair it properly, and get everything back in line the way it should be. But yeah, there was a ton of that going on as well.
Yeah. I'm curious now too, because of those water lines. Have you seen anybody installing like, I don't know, drain valves, a way to drain their lines should they see another freeze coming?
That's something I have suggested, but people in Texas don't understand what it is to really winterize anything. I mean, most people don't even go through the trouble to winterize their boat.
Right.
Like it's just not something that we really worry about. Not saying that we shouldn't, but we don't. Actually, I had a meeting with a new client today, and she just sold her home on February 10th. That was their close date. And she told them, I did as much as I could to empty the house and get it winterized, but these cold temperatures are coming. You need to get over there and you need to winterize it. You need to shut off the water, bleed the lines, and get it turned off. Well, they didn't. And then 4 days later, that storm hit, and these people who just bought a brand new house are replacing the floors, the drywall, everything in it, because this particular house had its plumbing in the attic space.
Jeez. Yeah, that's not good. Holy cow. No, and
there was like the biggest impact of to me, what hit me right in the feels more than anything out there that I saw was one night I was at my buddy's house and we had got a fire and everything going over there. Boom, his electricity went out. So I was like, all right, well, let's run back over to my place because it's probably still on over there. I haven't had any issues. His was kind of on and off, but he had a fireplace. And we got in the car, and as we're driving down the road, you just start seeing like brake lights and headlights come on up and down the street. I was like, man, what the hell is going on? and then it clicked. Everybody is going out and sitting in their car to stay warm.
Shit, yeah.
And so you had some families that even had small children who were sleeping in their vehicles for 3 days straight just to keep warm. There was a mother who tried to do that. And it's common sense in our generation lacking it. She tried to keep herself and her children warm. So she went out to her car, which happened to be in the garage. And she only opened the garage like 6 inches or something like that.
Damn.
And her children basically died of what do you call it, carbon monoxide poisoning.
Jeez. Yeah, man. Yeah. It goes back to the call the guy thing, and not having that knowledge and whatnot. I don't know. Some people in our community do a good job spreading that. People in the prepping community do a great job spreading that knowledge. I think people really kind of they slip up on books, on physical books, because the power goes out. You don't have YouTube to look up, whatever you want. I think the Amazon Kindle Paperwhite is a great thing to have for a bug out bag or whatnot, because how much stuff you can fit on there. It's got a month charge, so even that's better than nothing. But books, man. If you don't know, you can always learn it from a book, and it'll always be right there should the power go out, anything like that. So, and it's never too late for people to learn it too.
I've got a library of books that are in hard copy that I have not read, but I know that how-to information is there should I need it on a whim. And I can spend an afternoon or a day or whatever going through there and gaining the information I need to figure some shit out.
Absolutely.
I have a library of books just for that, just because I know, what good a computer is going to do if I don't have any electricity.
Oh man, same here. I love it. That, and I just love collecting books. I got a whole bunch of them, but I hope people are taking to heart that it's never too late to learn this stuff. And usually it takes something like this for people to figure that out, that you can learn it. It's not too late, and be prepared for the next time, whether it's books or learning how to do that stuff yourself, any of that, and connecting with a network. That's my favorite thing out of all this, is the way that all you guys pulled together and networked and got your community together to help people out. I love seeing that everywhere, especially from our community.
Yeah, I mean, just in the people that I know personally, there were 50 people out doing the exact same shit, braving the cold. I mean, it was brutal out there. I got frostbite the first day. We spent 10 hours out there, something like that. And by the time I took my boots off, my feet were blue and red. And I set them by the fire, and they warmed up. And I put my boots back on to go do some other stuff. And I eventually made it home. And when I kicked my boots off, my feet were actually starting to turn black on the bottoms, on the top, all over. Crazy. And there's a lot of people out there dealing with that. And so for everybody to go out there and just work together to help each other out, I love to see that. And I hope that message got spread outside of Texas. That we all just need to help each other. And it's all regardless. Nobody sat out there and was like, dude, who did you vote for? Fuck you, I'm not giving you wood. None of that was going on. And I just want people to start working together more, put all the bullshit aside, forget about their stupid fucking politics, and just be humans to one another. I've kind of strayed away from really calling myself an anarchist. And I don't really don't mingle with very many anarchists anymore either, because they're so wrapped up in their own inner turmoil with each other and what to label each other. To me, they just don't get it at all. And they want to battle everybody, we use the term status because we understand who it is we're talking about, but we can't approach those people and call them statist and have them be willing and open to receive any information that we could share with them, So the way that you've shifted the show, I really enjoy it even more now, because I can see that it's pulling away from the echo chamber that our groups are in the anarchist
Thanks,
world
man.
to, hey, now let's reach out and see how we can do that without bashing these people and telling them that they're fucking dumb.
Right.
Like I look at it, they're not willingly dumb. They're fucking brainwashed. And if anything, I feel bad for them. So, I want to be available to them with open arms, to share my ideals with. And when things like this occur, then we have the opportunity to have these conversations to have people really want to listen to it.
Fuck yeah, man. 100% right. And thank you. That's what I'm looking for here. And it's awesome to hear that you're doing the same thing. 'Cause that really is what it is. It's when shit hits the fan, politics don't matter. It's people coming together. And if you've laid that groundwork to be able to help people, you're going to be able to help them beyond that one incident, into a better life, hopefully, into a better way of living more independently and more freely. But yeah, fuck yeah, man. On that note, let's wrap her up, man. Call her a show. You got time for my ads after this, but I really appreciate you coming on, man. That was great. Thanks for helping people out down there in Texas. Got any sign-off words for us?
Oh, man. You guys just continue to be good people, get out in the world, help everybody that you can, any opportunity that you get, and just spread the love.
Love it, man. Brett Gough, everybody. All right. We'll see you all in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on, man. It's Beyond the Ballot. Until next time.
Professional anarchists.
You guys are getting paid?